James will be reviewing this book, and this book, and this book. And he'll probably talk about that a little bit more. So go ahead, James. I'm going to shelter this thing.
How much time we got? The full 30?
You sure do.
Might take more than that.
Yeah.
Might take less. I'm going to start with Eric Ormsby. He's a reviewer or essayist or critic or whatever you want to call him or not. Hopefully he's still alive. He's pretty good. 1941, should still be alive. He was born 41. And I'm going to run through something like a biography. So he's born in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places.
Yes. That'll work.
He's a scholar in Islamic thought. Got a doctorate in Near Eastern Studies, and that's basically what I was pursuing at the university, only in a very different field. But yeah, ancient Near Eastern Studies was what I was pursuing. So I got that from Princeton University, and that's kind of low rent by comparison to some of the universities I probably would have qualified for if I hadn't come down with bone marrow cancer. And that's a reason, not an excuse, folks. Bone marrow cancer is twice as virulent as average cancer, and I've got a mutant form of it, which would be, I think, something like 3 times as virulent as average cancer. I'll translate virulent for you folks who maybe don't have quite the vocabulary. Some other people out there are deadly in this context. And if I had to go to something like a world-class institution, even Princeton, the cancer would be back pretty well over there. A lot of pressure. So this dude taught at McGill University, that's in Montreal, one of the more prestigious institutions in Canada, and don't believe Maclean's magazine when they rate that along with Queen's University as 1, 2 or something. It's University of Toronto and UBC. I don't care what Maclean says, they have no clue. Those are the 2 universities that I would choose for pretty well anything. Sometimes UBC, only very occasionally, outdoes University of Toronto in a particular field. But it's generally University of Toronto for the stuff that I am pursuing. I had to put my pursuance into abeyance, if you'll excuse that rather clumsy formulation. I was pursuing ancient Near Eastern Studies. There's only one game in town when we're talking about Canada. That's the University of Toronto, unless they've really picked it up at UBC. So I taught there at McGill for 20 years, and then in 1996, he was prof and director of the Institute of Islamic Studies there. 2005, he moved to London, where he took up a post as senior research associate at the Institute of Ismaili Studies. Sorry for stumbling over the occasional thing. I should read. I suppose I have glasses for reading. Ordinarily, when I'm reading inside, where there's not as much light, I need some sort of glasses. And he's written extensively on classical Arabic literature and Islamic thought. And he's done translations from Arabic and Persian, which is impressive, right? Those are, you're dealing with a different script. Persian is the Indo-European language. Arabic is a very different language from the Indo-European languages. The Semitic languages, including Arabic, are very, very different. They're set up very differently. And he's published 6 poetry collections, presumably including this. And he's been an essayist and a reviewer, the author of 2 critical works on poetry and translation.
So mostly you appreciate his, or you respect his achievements, his academic achievements.
I think he's probably more of a better scholar than he is a poet. No, let me put it this way. He actually does write poetry, or what I call chant. It's not lyric poetry. What I call, I give it a strict sense. Lyric means, or meant originally, to be performed accompanied by a lyre. And I've said it before, I'll say it any number of times again. So if you don't like it, well, you can kind of lump it. And stuff that isn't meant to be sung and or accompanied by a musical instrument, I call chant, if it is actual verse. And this stuff is more chant. He doesn't really, from what I can see, have many things that you would consider strophic forms. At the best, you'd maybe call them odes, English odes. Not Horatian odes, but more like odes in the Greek format, where the line lengths would be different, and they're in Greek they're just where no rhymes. So he actually does write reasonably well. Pauline didn't like it as well as...
Well, I didn't like either of them.
And one of the problems you had was vocabulary. You had a problem with their vocabulary. Not so much...
Well, it really annoys me when I run across... I'm slammed with a whole bunch of words in a row, and you pointed it out in... I think it's the second poem in there. Yeah. All of those words are adjectives, and so they're not even really important words. And the poet, the writer is slamming them at me, and I'm like, okay, now I have to try to figure out what these words mean, and they're not even important.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
So gormless, that means kind of like kind of lumpy or something like that, like basically not having much on the ball.
And so I think when writers do that, when they slam a whole bunch of big words into a poem or into whatever they're writing, I think that they're basically just it's an ego trip that they're on, and it's not about writing for something for anybody else to read. It's about trying to push their knowledge of vocabulary into other people's spaces, but it's not about the art.
So he has the verb tupping, which is maybe a fairly
write a
strong.
dictionary.
It means
maybe you should go write a dictionary.
So it has tupping, which is
a poem.
Tupping, which is kind of an old-fashioned word for banging. Tupping before the fall. Libidinous, well, that has to do with libido. Scheming, prelapsarian, that's before the fall. So lapse is the fall, so that's before the fall of mankind, when the people are kicked out of Eden. So the tupping should be changed. Gormless, I don't know. That's kind of a modern word, but...
and especially when you're not even having to worry about rhyme and rhythm.
Well, this guy
What's
is,
it about?
let me see, he's rhyming every other line, parts and arts, but it's not, you've done, I mean, for you, rhyming every line this long, it would be kind of...
Easy?
Yeah. Okay. I can imagine you ardent, my absent Natasha. You're down the oxygen, roseate hinder part. So the rhythm is not regular. You could maintain it's maybe accentual. I can imagine you ardent, my absent Natasha. So there's 4 strong accents there. Your downy oxygen, your roseate hinder parts. Well, maybe you could say that's 4. Let's see next. Voila, it's Master Rodney Ockham. Okay? At your service, Jack of Venereal Arts. So at your service, Jack of Venereal Arts. So it looks as though he might have this idea that he's throwing in 4 strong accents per line. I can imagine the horny young bumpkin at... Oh, okay, you've set a pattern in the first stanza. And I can imagine there's no way you can get it around it. It's and I can imagine the horny young bumpkin Adam. So that's 5. There's no way you can get over it. Salacious but gormless, tupping before the fall. There's no way you can get over it. Before has a somewhat more. It has a bit of an accent there. So that's 5 with libidinous, scheming, prelapsarian Eve. So now In this stanza, he's got 5. Mere child's play, folks. No problem at all. That's back down to 4. So I don't think he has much of a sense of rhythm.
No.
When you're doing accentual rhythm, you do not put 3 unaccented syllables together, because the middle one is going to get some sort of accent. I don't think he understands that. So, well, here we are, where we have always been. Well, here we are, where we have always been, of course, and sometimes recognized as such. Recognized as such. The I gets a slight accent there. Of course, and sometimes recognized as such. Of course, and sometimes well, that's actually iambic pentameter. Well, here we are, where we have all. Oh, he's actually trying to write iambic pentameter here. Right? I wonder that the cosmos can survive. Well, that first line's a problem. Well, here we are, where we have always been. Yeah, you can say, you can do that. If you put a period there, you can go da 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 da. Oh yeah, it's a little loose, but what they. I wonder that the cosmos can survive. The theme and variation of your touch.
Well, that one didn't bother me that much.
Well, actually, he's rhyming every other line. I mean, it's, it's not like doing heroic couplets where you're rhyming every line. It's not even like doing A-B, iambic pentameter, where you're rhyming every line. But, it's better than most.
But the problem you have with
so-called
that
poets
is
have been doing
mostly
the
the adjective tense, right?
Well, with this stuff, we did this second one before, and it was like the first 2 lines he was going along, thumping along at more than 25% of the words adjectives, and then in the second stanza it was over 10%, and I'll read it to you, and I can imagine the horny young bumpkin, and there's 3 in a row. Salacious but gormless, there's 2 more. Topping before the fall, with a libidinous, scheming, prelapsary, and eaty, mere child's play, folks, no problem at all. So the last line, no, that's okay, but the first 3 lines are stunning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And how many words are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Well, that's more than 33%, more than a third of the words in that thing is stunning. I feel bad when I get more than 10%. Now, what were you saying?
I was saying you would not have allowed me to get away with that when you were teaching me.
Well, when it's teaching, like now, it's up to you. There might be sometimes, like if you're making fun of people who write stuff that's adjective laden, or if you got some really, really good adjectives. Sometimes W.H. Auden would chuck 2 adjectives together. I don't recommend necessarily putting 1 adjective in front of a noun, but sometimes he'd put 2 right in front of a noun. And expensive, delicate ship. That's in Musée des Beaux-Arts. And expensive, delicate ship. Yeah, it's delicate. Why is it? It's way off in the distance. This is a picture of Icarus done by Bruegel. And expensive, it's like, it would be something like an Argosy or something like that. So it actually tells you about that ship and what you're seeing of it. Or at least what you recall seeing of it if you recall the picture. So you can get away with that. I'm not going to tell people if they're not in learning mode to cut it out entirely, but for Pete's sake, don't do it in every poem. And he again and again and again. How much time's left?
Quite a bit.
Okay, well, I've got a lot of stuff to deal with.
You do.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Unless you want me to read this poem.
Yeah, read the poem, because you didn't start off.
Okay.
Yeah, we recorded this earlier, and we didn't have a card or something like that.
Yeah, or whatever. So, this is my poem, Our Canada Day, which I wrote yesterday, June 30th, 2024, and I planned on reading it while the fireworks were going, but I'll just read it now, because, as much as I plan to go watch the fireworks, oftentimes I don't. James always does, because he runs a different schedule, for me.
I run a different schedule every day. I'm on meds that do all sorts of weird things to my digestive system, to my sleep patterns.
But I was
and
up
whatever.
at 3 a.m. and I'm always up very early in the morning. So watching fireworks is tough for me. So anyway,
Because
this
they start at 11 local time.
Yeah. So this is my poem Our Canada Day, which is a haiku stanza in triple rhythm with secondary accents. So
Which makes it tough.
James put this form together for me in 2020 for me to write and fill, and here it is. It's a tradition we've kept each July like our own celebration. Each Canada Day, minutes after the fireworks, you wander away, even lovelier still than you'd been years before. But I'm lonelier. Watching each color that thunders like lightning strikes could last forever. This Canada Day, while we're watching the fireworks, I'll ask you to stay, and quite naturally, Canada Day will be our anniversary. So, I just filled this form. Canada Day is not our anniversary, but it sort of is. Because the spot where we go to watch the fireworks is the spot where our anniversary is.
That's where we had our first date in school.
Yes.
Pauline's neighborhood.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was October 8th or 9th. Look it up because it was a lunar eclipse.
Yeah, I just go by eclipse. So
yeah, exactly.
Basically, I decided every full moon is going to be our anniversary.
It's an anniversary, it's a monthly anniversary.
Why not?
It was a nice full moon the last time, but
Yeah.
it was the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to wake you up.
But anyway, so now James is going to talk about Eric Ormsby a little bit. And then hopefully he has time to talk about the Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter, because he went through the whole thing. And I don't know if you got any of that stuff recorded. We'll see. So, go ahead. Gimme Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I know she's being ironic. She's not a big fan. I can't see any women being with a strong sense of self, or even a moderate sense of self, being a big fan of the Rolling Stones as their career has once it developed. As it's devolved. At one point in time, it seemed like they almost mattered, at least to a teenage boy, talking about me. I wanted to get hold of all their stuff when I was about 18. Even some of the early stuff. If I'd only known what the early stuff was like. They had real troubles when they, after their first album. The first album was very derivative. I'd say even more derivative than Janis Joplin was. Derivative of certain types of black music or African American music. Well, I don't know if I want to talk about these much anymore. These books, Ormsby and Outram, were recommended by one of the top 3 poets in Lethbridge. He writes real poetry. Some of it you could actually set to music. His brother is a very fine musician, but I've been told that he hasn't set any of his, the musician, the piano player, hasn't set any of his brother's stuff to music. This seems kind of different, but that's okay. People do what they'd rather do. Anyway, the reviews here are pretty interesting. He does a hatchet job on Christopher Ricks, or whatever his name was. He was maybe a bit too much of a fan of Bob Dylan, but how does he end that review? Should be about page 58. Got something here. If too often you hear the dim crunch of a butterfly being broken on a wheel, this is referring to Christopher Ricks overdoing it with Bob Dylan, you're inclined to forgive Ricks because of the deep, if immoderate, affection he holds for his subject. At the same time, and speaking only for myself, thank heavens, I just hope he doesn't now move on to the boss or the king. So that's kind of like unfair. I can't see anyone who really thinks a lot of Bob Dylan, me included, being terribly impressed with the boss, i.e. Bruce Springsteen, and particularly Elvis Presley, the king. That's a real shot. It's unfair to Rick's. I'm sure I've got a book by Rick's about Dylan, and he does. I mean, Ormsby talks about Rick's trying to find meaning in Bob Dylan's "Lay Lady Lay," and that one sits pretty flat on the page. It sits pretty flat on the turntable too, frankly. On that album, Nashville Skyline, Dylan does one of the worst duets ever. He does it with Johnny Cash. Is it "Girl from the North Country"? But I'm telling you, I don't know if I ever want to hear Johnny Cash doing a duet, maybe even with his wife, June Carter. Understand, I think quite highly of Johnny Cash and June Carter. She had a way better voice than him. I'm just not a big fan of his voice. And Christopher Ricks. Exactly right. So did we get that review in of Linda Ronstadt? And
I don't think so.
Oh. So I'm actually thinking of it. They in that Linda Ronstadt, but we don't have to return that one. Do we have to return that one tomorrow? Okay, I'll talk about it now. In that thing, they've got Linda Ronstadt. There we go. So different voices, or what's it called? In my own voice?
The sound of my voice.
The sound of my voice. Mm-hmm. And it has a nice duet incredibly between Emmylou Harris and was it Linda Ronstadt? I think it was Emmylou Harris. Linda Ronstadt? Like one or the other. Duetting with Johnny Cash. It must have been Linda Ronstadt, because you'd think Emmylou Harris would just get totally overwhelmed by Johnny Cash's gravelly, out-of-tune voice. Flat, too. It's out-of-tune and flat. Pretty impressive. I think it's Linda Ronstadt. She does a great job singing with him, But she wouldn't have trouble. She'd blow him off the stage, if it came down to volume, if she really wanted to push it. But she actually makes his voice sound palatable.
One thing we noticed about the Gimme Shelter
Yeah.
is whoever was doing the camera work was focusing way too much on Mick Jagger, which who cares? Nobody wants to look at him. We barely want to hear him. And
someone described his singing style as blues shouting. And I'm going, yeah, it's more blues or shouting than blues, but he's trying the blues thing.
But anyway, like, especially when the guitar solos were on and stuff, why are you showing Mick Jagger? Nobody wants to see that. They were commending themselves
on their camera work. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, of course, the guitar solos were like in Little Queenie, and they're basically not much when it comes to guitar solo. I think it's basically Keith Richards doing it. It's kind of like note bending and stuff. Like, how Chuck Berry stuff. Pretty well all sounds the same. But there are kind of like two guitar solos in Little Queenie in the version on this. And I'm not interested in watching Mick Jagger prance around. There's too much of it on the... I was getting seasick watching him just at the beginning when they're doing Jumpin' Jack Flash. I think of Madison Square Gardens, the old Madison Square Gardens.
Well,
he's just, like rubbing the hair out of his eyes and... and all this sort of stuff, playing with his scarf and doing the pelvic thrusts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the technicians who worked on the technician, not the proper word, it's one of the three most important people, Zwerin, I think is her last name. And she might still be alive. Hope she is. She was saying she showed it to some older friends or something like that, some of the rushes, and they were just falling over themselves laughing at how stupid Mick Jagger.
Yeah, he does look stupid. But I mean, I guess it's sort of a comedy show watching.
Well, it depends on what you mean. I can remember the first time I saw him, he was actually better in the mid-'60s. what he'd do is he had the James Brown shtick, which was kind of. Have you ever seen James Brown where he's polishing the floor with his shoes?
Yeah.
You know, so Mick Jagger kind of picked that up, but the rest of them was kind of fairly stable. You know, and I can remember the first time I didn't realize that he was picking up a black artist. Like he had a mic on a stand, right, and he took the stand down, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
And we did like seeing Tina Turner.
Oh, she was playing around with a microphone in a certain kind of suggestive.
It was funny, yes. And what else did we like about the show? Well, I guess I liked listening to that one Hell's Angels radio, or what was it, interview? Or
Sonny
whatever?
Barger. So
Okay.
it's not just the Hell's Angel. He was the head of the Oakland chapter.
Oh, okay. Oh man, the way that guy was looking at Mick Jagger, I thought.
Well, that was a different guy. That was the head of the San Francisco chapter.
Oh, I see.
So these are all around the Bay Area. San Francisco is actually a fairly small city. It's not even 1 million. But when it's the core for the Bay Area, the whole Bay is basically just, from what I can tell looking at maps, it's all built in. It's appalling. It's a big bay, and it's like Silicon Valley is off to the south of the bay. So Palo Alto, San Jose, all that sort of stuff down to the south. Over on the east side, it's downwind. That's Berkeley is there. I don't know how it ended up there. The most radical campus maybe in the whole world. But Oakland is there. And Oakland is really, really, really run down, right? It's downwind of the rest of the stuff. So I don't know how many chapters they had, but Sonny Barger was the head of the Oakland chapter. And he was the most famous or infamous of all the Hells Angels. 5 minutes?
3.
3 minutes. Anyway, he had a big long rant on radio. What was it? KSAN or something like that. And Pauline was listening to it out in the living room. And she was going, the guy made, or you were in for a while. Yeah. The guy made sense. He was being, from what I can tell, Sam Cutler was telling him to do this, that, and the other thing. Even after they'd been, Cutler would have witnessed right from the stage the beatings with leaded pool cues and stuff like that. And, you know, like Cutler should have been told, you know, like, hey, people are more important than the speakers. I'm talking about the sound system and stuff like that. And Sonny Barger should have understood that people are more important than their motorbikes. So he was talking about protecting his motorbikes.
Yeah, he was. But to them, I mean, their motorcycles are probably more valuable than people.
Yeah, but that's bad ethics. They should never have been hired.
They shouldn't have hired them then, because they know that. And so anybody who doesn't realize that about the Hells Angels, they're fools.
Absolutely stupid.
So,
you know, like Sonny Barger was in 1966, 3 years before, maybe even more than 3 years before, because this concert occurred very late 69. Hunter S. Thompson talked about these guys, and it was from the Bay Area, and I'm sure Sonny Barger was in there. And somewhere along the line, he probably got a little loose with the lip, as he was wont to do, and they pounded him badly, really badly. Well, they should have known. I don't know what they were thinking of. Stupid. Yeah. But it's not just the Rolling Stones. It's Jerry Garcia recommended. Rock Scully, the Grateful Dead manager, helped arrange it. They should have been telling Mick. And Sam Cutler, the road manager for the Stones, don't do it. This is
But I don't know what you'd expect that guy to do.
Which guy?
That Hells Angels guy who ended up killing...
No, that guy, that's not a murder. There was no way that was murder. You know, the guy pulled a gun in a crowd of 300,000 people, and from what I can tell, he was pointing it at 2 or 3 Hells Angels,